Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Lists, a little series I'm doing to cover a wide variety of broad subjects that interest me. LIST stands for Life is Short, because I always think, even in the grand scheme of things, if life is short, there is still plenty of time to do a bunch of stuff and talk about a bunch of dumb or interesting topics. And for today's subject, we're going to be talking about using your life experiences as lessons. This might get into ramble territory, but we shall see how it turns out. But one thing I always love to see people do is look at stuff they've done in their life and been really proud of it. And it always makes me happy to see people do that and actively really just show it. Because when you're able to do something you're proud of and remember a really good time and use that for later bragging rights or maybe just figuring out other stuff in the future, that's a really beneficial thing. Because let's say you, got a job that you were really proud of, and you're really happy that you did. And then a couple years later, maybe you leave the job because you didn't want to, but you remember that feeling of when you got that job for the first time and how happy it made you, and how you're really glad you got that job because then it got you to this next job that you're even happier about. And using those good experiences as little lessons to remember, oh yeah, that thing helped me get to where I am now. This is the common thing that a lot of people do, is taking good experiences and getting good out of them by thinking about them again and basically relating them to how they got to their current life scenario. But there's the flip coin of negative experiences and how you can still correlate them to positive change. This is an interesting subject I've heard a couple people talk about, but this has been my philosophy for a couple years now, ever since I really just sat down and thought about it. But I'm going to give an example. There are people in my life that I do not really ever want to talk to again or see for the matter. But when I look back on my memories with them, I don't see pain. I don't see any of that. I see lessons that were learned that needed to be learned. When you are in a scenario where you have been hurt mentally or physically, and you have all of these things relating to something that happened, and that thing that happened is so negative, it is really impossible for you to get any sort of positive nature from it. But there are parts of it that you can take away and try and get into a positive light, like trying to figure out how that experience changed you as a person and got to make you, you. It's going back to that same example of thinking about maybe a job that you got you to this new job. You have to use those negative experiences as the same, and if you really think about it, you're able to, I believe, become a better person if you understand the negative things that happened in that situation and properly take them into a positive light to use right now to figure out how you got to where you are. I know that the people that I don't really want to talk with anymore, I'm probably never going to. But the times I had with them doesn't change that I had some fun times with them, and that I remember I was happy in those moments. And I remember what I taught them, and I remember what they taught me. And what I gained from that was really positive. But when things went south, your brain goes to the negatives first. I believe there's actual science behind it, how humans like negativity more than positive. If you see something negative on a news article, you might be eager to click on it instead of a positive thing. And personally, that makes sense just from looking at how algorithms and whatnot is nowadays. But if you think about how that is, if you have a negative experience, you might consider all those good times lost, and you only have that negative part attached to that person and or thing. I know that is how I was after I met these people, and then I never wanted to talk with them again, is all I could think about is, that happened. I don't want to see him again. Why could they do this? Yada, 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 talking all about that. But it was an interesting perspective of me just sitting alone in silence, thinking about what I've learned throughout my life. And when I got to my modern life and started thinking about those negative experiences, I realized that they were so beneficial to me that why do I have to consider all about it negative when there were positives to be taken from it? It really baffled me at first, and it made me realize heavily that I need to take the positives away from the negatives. This might be a common thing that people use as motivation, but truly what I learned from feeling negative was another learning experience on top of what I learned from those people. I learned how it's normal to have the phase of feeling negative towards a situation and grieving from it. But afterwards, you can realize how your grieving process was, how you could continue it and make sure that you aren't going to be in a worse spot in the future. And then going back and remembering the good times and remembering it might have ended negatively, but that doesn't change what actually happened in the good times you had. Focusing always on the good is hard because, like I said before, you might want to go into the negatives and start really thinking about them. I always view in life is some things just do not work out, and that is fine. In some scenarios, like ones I mentioned, sometimes you and the other person just aren't able to click as good as you maybe thought. And it can hurt when you lose someone that you love and realizing all that and then associating it with that negativity. But if you think about how we are and how we're able to continue going forward in life and what we're able to accomplish just by ourselves, you can get inspired by just yourself and realizing where you've come from and use those negatives as checkpoints. You can remember the low moments, you can remember how it ended, but then you can remember the good that might have come from that, how your life could have changed if those negative experiences didn't change who you were. Or you can just go to the good times. Remember how you were happy. Think about life in a good manner and not have to always focus on the negative. I think we can all be guilty of wanting to focus on the negatives, but you do have to just take a step back and look at your life and be happy for where you are. I know I have to do that a couple times because I have to realize I've had a life so far and I got to look back on the good times. I got to look back at the bad times, but I got to look at how I persevered through the bad times, had good in the bad, and how I was able to become the person I am today, who was able to talk to new people, make new friendships, and have a good time in my life and be able to sit back, relax, and not have a bunch of stress in my mind about stuff that could be happening because I've already processed through all of it. It's why, for me, journaling has become a great way to separate my mind from my mind. I know for all of us, you might be stuck up in your brain a little. I think we're all guilty of it, of thinking too much or just having too many ideas floating around in our head and not properly getting them out. And I find of just getting a piece of paper and just writing what I'm thinking at that current moment is a great way to just get everything out of my head and not have to continuously think about it. For me, at least, it works as a way to basically take the data out my brain and shove it somewhere else where I can still look at it if I want to, but I don't have to be constantly thinking about it. And that is another great way to basically go through these experiences of life, use them as checkpoints, and then look back at them and find what good you got from all these different scenarios. Like always taking the good out of the good and taking what you learned from that. Then going back to the bad and writing out how you found out the good from the bad. It's a journey that doesn't just happen, but it's a journey that I believe everybody should take. Anyways, that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.